Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of the Cycle Podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Boudreau. This podcast talks about endometriosis and a variety of different things, but I really enjoy interviewing people and getting their sides of the stories because, as we all know, endometriosis manifests itself differently in everybody, and I think hearing different perspective is very helpful in everyone's journey. Thank you so much for listening, and thank you for anyone who's written a review thus far. We have 5 stars on iTunes. I couldn't be more appreciative. Thank you very much. If you want to reach out or connect or even just need someone to talk to about endometriosis, please feel free to reach out to me. My Instagram handle is at melissboo, and it's at MELISBOU, or you can find me at ENDO_lady, or you can email me, Melissa, MELISSA, at bouconsulting.com. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you again so much for listening. Today we are going to be talking to a young lady named Brittney. She has had quite an endo journey. We randomly met via the internet and spoke together in DC at the Endo March, and I look forward to sharing this episode with you today. Thank you again so much for listening. I really appreciate it. Guys, very excited to have Brittney here with us today. She and I actually randomly met over the internet, and we both live in Detroit, which is amazing. And we both spoke in Washington, D.C. at the Endo March, and she has a pretty incredible story. So I'm going to let her share that with us today. But first, Brittney, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. And why don't you start off by just giving us a little bit of information about you?
Well, of course. And Melissa, I do have to thank you for the opportunity. I truly appreciate it. It means a lot to me. So I'm glad to be here. So thank you. So a little bit about me. I'm 34 years old. I am a mother of one amazing 5-year-old little boy. I just recently got into, in the last year, just advocating very strongly for endo. And I actually am the founder of the Detroit Endo Warriors here in Detroit. So it's just a very small support group that I started just to have an opportunity to be with like-minded women, to just have a support system around myself that completely understood what I was going through and what I was suffering from.
Absolutely. And such a great organization. I love the name, obviously being from Detroit too. So that's great. Yes. Thank you for sharing that. So when did your period first start?
It started at the age of.
Okay. And then when you were 12, were you experiencing pain immediately, or did it take a couple years, or, kind of walk us through just the beginning of having your period and what was going on?
Oh, Lord, that journey. Okay. So it started off, I would say, as a normal period. It only lasted maybe 3 to 5 days. Nothing excruciating. It gradually grew. And it took a lot of, month after month realizing, okay, Tylenol doesn't work. Okay, Motrin doesn't work. Midol does not work. And it gradually got worse. So it kind of built up over that time until I was about 13 and a half. I'll say, I had reached my half birthday at 13, where I ended up going to the ER literally every month. It was like clockwork.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, it was like I could pinpoint every 28 days down to the day. Like I knew when it was coming. And it had gotten so bad that they started to actually know me at the ER and said it's been a month already.
Oh my goodness. And at this point, did anyone say, was your mom like, this is normal, girls like you just get painful cramps, or what was going on with the doctors and the nurses and your mom, and did anyone say this isn't normal?
No, absolutely not. At first my mother was like, you're just getting used to it, it's what girls go through. You got to learn to bear the pain. Mm-hmm. And that was something that actually got said to me a lot. You got to learn to bear the pain. You need to learn to bear the pain. And as I was going back to the hospital every month, then it started to be like, oh, it's psychological. Like, it's all in her mind. You know, she's a teenager. She's going through her emotions. She's just extremely emotional. She's just dramatic girl.
Right. Right.
Yeah, no. And it was like, at that time, they wanted to start putting me through extensive, like, transvaginal ultrasounds. And I was a virgin, and I had never had anything in there, not even a tampon.
Right.
And, you know, they wanted that, and I wouldn't, when they would do like the transvaginal, you know, they want your bladder to be full. And I wasn't drinking enough because I was throwing up so much. So now it's like, okay, we need to stick a catheter in her. And it was just so degrading and so painful for just 13-year-old Brittney.
Yes, yes. 13. I mean, just so young. So young. You're not even in high school yet, or you're a freshman in high school. Were you in 8th grade or a freshman in high school?
And I was like the thick glasses, hair braided kind of girl. I was a shy girl. I was a book reader.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, you know, me and my friends weren't discussing this. You know, it was just like, oh, I got my period. It's not like I'm dying when I get it, you know?
Yeah.
So it wasn't even like a conversation to be had, you know?
Right. Right. So you had all of that done, and did anyone ever say the word endometriosis to you, or, you know, really what happened next? So you're going to the hospital all the time, you're vomiting, everyone's telling you it's normal. Then they start to tell you you're crazy and you're emotional and being a woman. Now what happens?
It was 2 days before my 14th birthday, and I had to be about maybe 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And I remember being in my bed, and literally I looked down, the blood was everywhere, all over the bed, all over the sheets, down my leg. And I could not move. And I remember, actually, I lived, you know, of course I was at home with my parents, and I remember crawling from my bedroom to my parents' bedroom. I remember literally crawling on the floor. And when I got to the door, I'm like knocking on the door. And my mother comes to the door, and she opens it, and she's like, oh my God, what is going on?
Right.
And unfortunately, like, the first reaction is like, you know, you see someone bleeding like that and everything. You're like, oh my God, is she pregnant and having like a miscarriage?
Sure.
You know, and it was like, and then I'm like, mommy, I need to go to the hospital now. Like, not right now, but like right now.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget that car ride, because she was going to call 911, but she wanted to drive me. And I'll never forget it. My mother was like flying down Southfield Road to Beaumont and Rollo, and she was like running red lights, and she, you know, she was honking at people like, get out of the way.
Right.
And so we get there, and of course they put me on like this critical care room, and they're like, well, how long has she been pregnant, and what's going on? And I'm like, wait a minute. And I'm like trying to advocate for myself at that moment. But everybody was speaking for me and not to me. And so my mother's like, are you pregnant? What's going on? I'm like, I'm not pregnant. I'm like, it's my period and I'm miserable. Something's going on. So I'll never forget, they paged the pediatric gynecologist. His name was Dr. Bloomer, Donald Bloomer at Beaumont. And they called him in, and he was the first one that ever said the word endometriosis to me. And they made me go through a CAT scan, another ultrasound, all of that. And there was actually a cyst on one of my ovaries. So they're like, you know, we need to go in. We need to take care of that, you know, and see what's going on. And endometriosis is diagnosed by surgery. So he's like, while I'm in there, I'm going to take a look around and see if there's something else that I think might be the answer.
Right.
And 2 days later, on my 14th birthday, is when I was diagnosed.
Oh my goodness. So were you in the hospital that whole time too? Or
yes.
Wow.
Yes. They kept me there.
Poor thing.
Yeah, it was traumatic.
Yeah.
You know, like, this was, you know, my 14th birthday. I remember it because my mother was going to finally let me put like colored streaks in my hair on my 14th birthday. You know, like, I knew what I was looking forward to.
Right.
And instead, I was being prepped for surgery.
Right. And did anyone even explain to you what endometriosis meant? Like, you heard this word, you're 14 years old, like that. means nothing, right? Like,
No. Like I said, they pretty much ignored me.
yeah,
They kind of directed everything to my mother,
sure.
and I love my mother. She's been an amazing support system over these last 20 years. But she had no clue either. And all
Yeah,
she knew was something's wrong with my child and I need them to fix it.
right, right.
And so they mentioned endometriosis to her, and oh, it's painful, and this could be the answer to what you're looking for. And we're going to go in and we're going to solder these little implants. He was like, they're black ducks. He was like, think sesame seeds.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, I'm going to go in and pretty much zap these sesame seeds, and she's going to come out like a new person.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the biggest lie
Yep.
I've ever heard.
Oh my goodness. So you had surgery at 14 and they removed the cyst, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And they did ablation
Yep.
at that time.
Yeah.
Which was the first of many.
Yes. So then after you have the surgery, what happens now? Are you feeling better? Are you feeling worse? Like what happens over the next couple years?
No, nothing changed.
Right.
It took me about 2 weeks to heal up. I do know that month after that initial, my period did not come.
Right.
And so, of course, for the first time since my period started, not to have one, I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever created. It didn't happen. Like they stopped it. Oh my God.
Right.
And yeah, that did not happen. It actually, the following month, which would have been January, it came back like it never left.
Yeah, with a vengeance. Did the doctor then ever explain to you that this was a chronic illness? He probably didn't know. I don't want to assume, but that's my assumption. And then did they put you on birth control or like, was there anything else after that to at least?
Not no, they didn't explain it to me. They gave me some little printout, and it was probably all of a 7-page paragraph in my discharge papers.
Right.
What you were diagnosed with. They were like, you need to follow up with us for your annual, but you're going to be good. It's going to take you about 6 weeks to heal up, and you should be fine. I suffered again about another year, and at 15 I had another ablation. Same scenario, same situation. It happened again, and then
same doctor.
Okay. And then I was told that this was the treatment for it. That, just about every year I was going to have to come back and have this done in order to have some type of relief or some type of pain-free.
Right. And you're like, but when I was 14, you told me this one surgery was going to solve everything.
Absolutely. And
yeah, but obviously you're not saying that because you're literally a child and you don't even understand what's going on.
No, I couldn't even pronounce it, not alone explain, understand, or even advocate for myself. And again, not knocking my parents in no way, shape, form, or fashion. Because I do have older parents. And again, if somebody tells me like, Brittney, something's wrong with your son, and if we do X, Y, and Z to fix it, all you have to do is sign on the dotted line. Of course, as a parent, you're going to sign on the dotted line.
Of course.
You just want your child out of pain. You want your child not to be, suffering anymore.
Right.
And
do you think your mom had endo? Did she ever have symptoms when she was younger?
Oh, absolutely. She had a partial hysterectomy. No, I'm sorry. She had a full hysterectomy. I want to say it's been about 25 years now, but she had heavy periods. She had intense cramping, and they told her it was just fibroids.
Right.
But I truly believe that she actually had endometriosis, but again, she's a lot older. It was easier. She was done having kids. Her kids were a lot older. So to just say, you know what, let's just get you, we'll just go ahead and take everything out, and remove your fibroids and you'll be fine. Of course, that's what she decided to do.
Sure. Sure. Okay. So now back to you. You're 15. You have your second surgery. And now the doctor's just saying, you know what, you need to come every year and have this ablation surgery done to maintain endo. So is that what you continue to do every year, is go back and have an ablation surgery with this doctor?
Well, at 16, is when they decided now we need to put on tricycling. Okay, so not only let's I was told let's combat this from two different angles.
Okay. I don't even
The
know what tricycline is. That an antibiotic?
No, it is this is an old, they don't even make it no more, birth control.
Got it. Oh, I do think I remember that. Okay.
Yes, I'll never forget the name of it because the pills were 3 different colors.
Yes.
Yes,
I
and
do remember that. I think I took that because they told me I had bad skin and I needed to take it.
yeah, so they put me on that, and I gained 20 pounds like the first 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And there was no difference except for there was no difference. I mean,
right.
My period still came. They were like, it's going to balance out hormones and this, that, and the third, and it's going to suppress this and that. And that did not happen.
Did you take the pill straight through? Did they suppress your period, or were you just taking it normal and then you would have your period every month?
Oh no, I was taking it straight through. So of course, the 2 cycles, and then I was taking the placebo at the end.
Mm-hmm.
So I was taking, and I did that and ablation till I was 17 or 18, and I made the decision to leave Dr. Bloomer, and I went over to it was Botsford at the time. It's Beaumont Farmington Hills now, but Botsford, and there was another physician over there.
So how many surgeries had you had at this point?
14, 15, 16, 17, 4.
Okay. So you have 4 surgeries and now you're finding a new doctor because you're like, this is just not working.
Yeah.
Okay.
And at this point, now it's going from bad to worse because now this doctor, who I thought was a little more well versed or more educated because he knew the book terminology and he knew the medical terminology of it. So I'm thinking, okay, so he knows what he's talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So now ablation goes from every year to every 6 months.
Oh my goodness. And this is, how old are you now? 18, 17, 18? Okay.
17, yes. Mm-hmm. And this literally continued till I was 22. And then at 22, it was like, we have got the answer to your prayers. I know we said it before, but we have found this wonder drug, and it is called Depo-Lupron.
Mm-hmm. So how many surgeries now have you had total before you go on the Lupron?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. I'm somewhere around 15.
So 15 surgeries. And how old are you? 22?
Yeah, 22. Yes.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And so
now Lupron is what they bring to the table for you.
Yes. And this is the cure all. It's going to cure it all. Like, that's basically what it was. It was like finding the Holy Grail, the fountain of youth. It's going to give you your life back. We are going to, and typically, Lupron is given every 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
He put me on what he considered to be a more strenuous, and I was getting Lupron every month.
And now, did anyone say to you, like, you have a very advanced case, this is why we have to treat it this way, or you think this is just normal because you don't know any better? I think
it's normal.
Right.
I don't know any better.
Right.
At this point, yes, I'm questioning things over the course of my teenage years and becoming in my early 20s.
Right.
Of course, I've gone up in stages from stage 2 to stage 3.
Mm-hmm.
And at the time Lupron was introduced, I was stage 4.
Right.
So that's why it was kind of like the Holy Grail, so to speak, is because you have got it the worst you can get it. It can't get any worse than you got it. But this wonder drug is going to cure it all. And what we're going to do is we're going to do it almost like chemotherapy. And so we need to go at it extensively. So any normal woman would get it every 3 months, but because it's you, we need to get it every 1 month. And that was probably the worst decision. If I could speak to 22-year-old Brittney, I would tell her to run like hell. Excuse my French, but I would tell her to run like hell.
Yeah.
Because now my hair is falling out. Now gained 65 pounds. Now I am having hot flashes and my face is breaking out and my emotions are upside down and frontwards and backwards. This is not what they promised me.
And you're 22 years old. So what, like, are you having a social life? Like, are you going to school? Like, are you able to live any sort of life?
No,
Normal life?
I had to drop out of college. I because I was just missing so many classes, like it was just
Sure.
no point.
Well, and a surgery every 6 months, you weren't even recovered and you were having another surgery.
And that was the thing. Like my body hadn't healed from the last one, and I'm already having another one.
Right.
Over time I had boyfriends and that type of thing.
Sure.
But they were never long lasting relationships. I actually found myself dating the same type of guy. I had a thing for guys in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And it was nice while they were home, and then they were off to boot camp or they were being stationed somewhere. So it was a long distance. So the things that normal people would do in their relationships, going out on dates, having intimacy, those type of things, I didn't have to engage in.
Right. So and you probably consciously didn't even know you were doing it. You were just doing it because it felt like that you were, living your life around the disease.
Absolutely. And now, as I've been advocating, as I've been sharing my story, I see the patterns that I didn't realize at that time.
Yeah.
Because I dropped out of school, I started working. I actually started, working in customer service in a call center. I'm sitting down all day. I'm on the phone. I don't have to dress up. I don't have to actually be face to face with people. This is perfect. But then I started I started missing days of work.
Yeah.
And then, of course, now it's time for you to get fired. And at this time, I'm in my own apartment. I lose the apartment and I have to move back home with my parents.
And this is, so you're on the Lupron monthly, you're 22, you have to drop out of college. Normal life is kind of there. You're trying, but it's really hard. Mm-hmm. And so how long did you do the Lupron for?
Till I was 26.
Wow.
And I just want to touch on the Lupron for a second. I just want to kind of say what the lasting effects of that is now at 34.
Yeah, there's a lot of women listening to this from all over the world. And yeah, anything that you can tell us from your experience. I know some people are against it. I know some people are for it, but yes, would love to hear your experience and kind of what the long lasting effects have been for you.
Okay. And so for the women that's listening to this, I'm about to get real raw and real. First of all, the person who ever created Lupron can go to hell in a handbasket. That's the first thing. And secondly, at 34, my hair will never grow beyond a certain point.
Right.
I've shaved it off, went completely short, and it will never grow back. And I remember, again, early 20s, my teenage years, I had beautiful long hair. I will never have that hair again. The weight I gained, I have never been able to lose that hormonal I call it medicine weight. I've never been able to lose that. Emotionally, an emotional roller coaster is an understatement. Until you pretty much been put into menopause at 22 years old, meaning hot flashes, low sexual desire, you're unable to get, like I said, I'm about to be real raw. You're unable to reach an orgasm. You are not able to get vaginally wet. It's nothing. You are
in menopause. Yeah, you're in menopause.
I was 22 with the body of a 70-year-old woman, and probably some 7-year-olds was having a better time than I was.
Right. And 22, you're just so young and don't even know. Right.
You're talking about the fatigue and the headaches, and so just imagine yourself laying there and your hair's falling out. You put on 65 pounds, you have no womanly desires at all, and this is your life, this is your everyday. And I did this for 4 years, and at this time, I'm actually going through the motions. I'm just playing the cards that I'm dealt. And then I started doing my own research. Around 24 is when I'm like, it has to be something better than this.
Right. And you're not having a period at this point. So is your pain gone?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Let's say it's like having the best meal ever in front of you and not being able to taste it. So right. It's like, so you're like, right. Everything is there without me having to go to Costco and buy overnight pads in bulk. That's it. That's the only difference.
Right. So let me just interject for people who don't know what Lupron is. Lupron is actually a drug to treat prostate cancer. But it does put women into menopause and can put women into menopause to temporary menopause is what they call it. But I've never done it. I've never taken it. I've never done it. But from the support groups and women I know, I've heard some people that said it's helped them, but I've heard more negative, unfortunately, than positive. And it's a harsh drug. And there's not been any studies that show that it actually helps with the endometriosis. It's more of a Band-Aid. So it's something that might get you by, but your endometriosis will still be there. I just wanted to chime in with that.
Yeah. So, at this time I'm going back to the doctor and I'm, just stressing my concerns. I'm starting to advocate for myself. And so he decides that I'm going to give you, progesterone pills. They typically give it to women that are in early pregnancy, that are high risk or on the verge of maybe miscarrying. Mm-hmm. And I was supposed to insert these little pink pills vaginally.
Okay.
And so, and my cervix was supposed to kind of suck it up, and it was supposed to replenish the estrogen and the progesterone that my body was losing.
Okay.
I did not see any change with that either, except that I was now peeing pink. Other than that,
right.
There was no significant change that I personally, saw a difference. And one thing I wanted to chime in on as well is that now at 24, I'm too old to be on my parents' insurance. So everything gets switched to me.
Right.
So now instead of my Lupron shots being paid for, we are now, myself and my family, because I'm still at home with my parents, are paying $900 a month out of pocket.
Yeah. We
were paying literally a rent for a shot that was supposed to be my cure-all.
Right. So after Lupron and you're starting to advocate for yourself, now what happens?
At 25, 26, I took myself off of Lupron. Yeah. I went in for my monthly appointment. They were like, okay, well, let's get ready to give you your shot. And I declined. Mm-hmm. And of course the doctor came in. What are you doing? Oh my God. I was actually getting ready for another ablation at that point. And, he was like, how could you stop yourself from taking this shot? I'm like, I'm done. And it took maybe about a good year, 27, because at 27, I ended up actually getting pregnant.
Which is amazing.
But I had an ectopic pregnancy.
Oh, no. Okay.
And so here comes
another surgery because that's an emergency situation.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, my goodness. But you were pregnant.
Yes, I did get pregnant. Okay. I didn't get past maybe 4 or 5 weeks. I did not get past that point. And I had the ectopic. And so again, another surgery. And I was told that that tube, basically the endometriosis had fused it together. So that's why the egg didn't move any further.
Right.
And that was on the right side.
Okay.
Then the following year, I did get pregnant and had my miracle baby. Noah, I had a 7% chance of getting pregnant with him and a 12% chance of carrying him to term. And I actually shared this story at the Endo Walk in DC about how my physician at that time, the physician I was seeing at Botsford, he had went on his merry little way. He had retired. So of course, here comes the young student that I probably had my period longer than he had been alive. You know, and he comes in the room and he tells me, you know, he's like, you know, Brittney, we need to schedule your abortion. And I'm like, what? Like, I didn't even know a doctor could even tell you something like this. And he simply said, it's easier for us to take him from you now than for you to lose him later. They automatically assume that what happened previously will happen again, because women that typically have an ectopic pregnancy, as well as having extensive surgeries that I had with all the scar tissue and stage 4 endometriosis, the likelihood of them carrying a baby to term was just non-existent.
Well, you proved them wrong, didn't you?
Yes, he is 5. He will be 6 in June.
That's so exciting. So,
yes.
Was your pregnancy hard? Did you have to go on bed rest, or how was?
I spent. He was 9 weeks early.
Okay.
So I only I had him at 31 weeks, and I spent, I will say, 85% of that pregnancy in the hospital.
Yeah.
I was on complete bed rest from 28 weeks to 31 weeks, and I actually had to stay in the hospital for those 3 weeks. I couldn't even get up and walk to the bathroom. They actually would come in and carry me to the bathroom. I was not even able to go to the bathroom by myself.
Right.
And then of course, once I had him by emergency C-section, and then I actually had another ablation right after my C-section at the same surgery.
My goodness. So now at this point, how many surgeries have you had?
Oh my God. Okay. At 28, I am at around 18.
Oh my
18.
goodness. Right.
18.
And everybody's still just doing ablation. You've at this point, you've never even heard of excision, I'm assuming.
Never heard.
Right.
Never.
Right.
And when I turned 30.
So 15 years after your initial surgery almost.
Yes. When I turned 30, I started Googling endometriosis specialists. I'm like, it has to be somebody on earth that knows what I'm looking for, or what's going on with me, and has an answer. Somebody knows what this is.
Are you still feeling now like you're done with the Lupron? Are you doing birth control? Are you doing anything after you give birth? Or are you just kind of doing nothing and trying to find someone to help you? Are you still having painful periods? Like, what's going on after you give birth to Noah?
I'm not doing anything, but I am praying for a solution. Same, and I'm going back to like 14-year-old Brittney. Meaning I'm back in the hospital every month. I'm unable to have, intercourse. I'm, bleeding for 9, 10, 11 days at a time.
Right.
It's just back to square
one. Okay. So you're like, I'm 30. I cannot do this anymore. I'm going to Google and find a solution. So this, okay.
And I found a doctor out of Providence, who my primary is out of, Dr. Whittington, and I set an appointment up with him, and the first thing that comes out of his mouth is total hysterectomy. He's like, that's your saving grace. that's not going to happen. So I kindly thank him for his
Mm-hmm.
services. I exit stage left, and then it's back to the drawing
Right.
board. And then I see that there's a doctor in New York and there's a doctor in Atlanta. And so I started doing my research on the doctor that's in Atlanta, which is Kenneth Sonervo at the CEC, which is the Center for Endometriosis Care.
Okay.
And so I'm starting to do research, and and they're like, oh, well, he'll review your case. You just got to get all your medical records together for him.
Right.
So I'm going to every doctor,
Yeah.
every specialist.
You're like, are you sure you want them all? Because it's going to be like 10 pounds.
It's going to be quite lengthy.
Right.
And my medical chart was not in volumes. They're like yellow pages size of my medical history. So I got together everything that I could find, and I gave it to him. I sent it to him, and it took about 2.5, almost 3 weeks. And I remember, I'll never forget this day. I was sitting, I've moved out of my parents' house. I have my young baby, and I'll never forget, I had pulled up in my driveway, and I was getting ready to go in the house, and I got a call from Dr. Centerville. It had to be somewhere around 7:30, 8 o'clock at night. And I got a call, and it was from Dr. Sonerva himself. He was working late in his office. He had reviewed not the first, but second volume of my medical chart. And he had basically had an answer for me. So after all of these years, he finally had an answer to what actually was going on with me. And he mentioned not only the endometriosis, but he also brought up a word, was adenomyosis. And it's something I had never heard about. And he told me that he had a plan for excision. And that was the first time that a doctor had ever mentioned excision surgery to myself. In the excision surgery, he mentioned that he would kind of go in and dig up the endometriosis from the root. And he would get me 85% pain-free. And at that point, it was a very low point for myself. I just had given up all hope of an answer or solution, or even something that would get me remotely to that point of
Did you have a hard time
being
believing
pain-free.
him, or were you like, no,
So
I trust what this man is saying?
No, I actually argued with him a little bit. I actually was like, no, I've heard this all before. I've been to several doctors. Even prior, one of the doctors that I was seeing at Beaumont even tried hypnosis. And I actually forgot to mention that earlier. And he was an endometriosis doctor, and he said he would use hypnosis as as a treatment for pain management. So so any type of answer, I actually kind of was like, no, we've done this. And he's like, no, if you can get to Atlanta, I can guarantee that you would be 85% pain free. And I never forget it. I started bawling on the phone. My son was in the backseat, and he was a itty bitty baby at that time. And I'm crying, then he starts crying. And so, but Dr. Sonovo actually provided me with an answer. And so I actually got off the phone with him, and I remember calling my mother, and I said, Mommy, I think this is it. And so once discussing it with him, and then of course the next day his office manager called me, and then she told me that the procedure meeting with him and doing the surgery was like $19,000. So what we ended up doing, I did not one but two GoFundMe accounts, cashed in my 401k, maxed out a couple credit cards, and this was in January, and my surgery was April 30th of 2016.
Okay. And so you went and had surgery. So how did it all go?
It was a 2-week procedure or case total, because they have you come down a few days beforehand. You come to the office, you meet his amazing office staff. They kind of let you know what to begin from beginning to end. And everybody in the office either had endometriosis or was a family member or close friend of someone that had endometriosis. And that was one of the greatest things I liked about his office. Everybody in the office knew exactly what was going on and how I was feeling. And, I was nervous. I was scared. I was happy. I had so many different emotions, but like the surgery day, I actually had a surgery sister, and our appointments for everything were on the same day. I was in the morning. She was in the afternoon. So like she was from Hawaii, and her husband was there. We actually still stay in touch to this day, and we celebrate our surgeryversary. And we might send an email or just a quick Facebook shout out just to say, hey, we've made it, 3 years since that happened, as of 2019. But so surgery, my particular surgery took 6 hours. It does not normally take that long. But that day I was in the hospital, he actually came in, he held my hand, he broke down everything. Everyone that was in the operating room with him, they came in and sat with me and my family. They talked to us about everything. As I was in the operating room, as they were putting me to sleep, Dr. Cernervo was the one that was holding my hand. And he was the first person I saw holding my hand when I woke up. And so, like, for him to even do that, for a doctor to take that type of time and have that type of consideration was amazing. But I could even tell the difference between that surgery and all the
when you
others
woke
I had
up,
previous.
right? You could,
meaning, yes, as soon as even like the recovery pain was different. And so, typically, you do end up spending 25 hours in the hospital recovering. I ended up staying 2 days because my surgery, again, was typically longer than normal because it was so bad and it was so much scar tissue. I did end up losing during that procedure. I lost my uterus because of the adenomyosis, and he basically said the inside of my uterus was like chopped liver. Like, it was so badly damaged from all the other procedures, and just the endometriosis and the adenomyosis had pretty much tore my uterus apart. And I also had what they call a tilted uterus, so it was facing backwards, which made it even more difficult. And I actually got that from my mother. It was her uterus actually was tilted forward, but mine was actually tilted back. And and that was something that he had told me, that women that typically have maybe a uterus that's not exactly in the place that it should be typically have a higher rate of getting adenomyosis because of that. So which was again something I had never heard, didn't even know it, and I had a baby and a C-section and everything, and nobody ever told me that my uterus was tilted.
And all those doctors and all those surgeries.
Exactly. So like that was like, it was like, oh my God, like thank you. Like thank you
and
for
so
an
now
answer.
how are you feeling now, or how are you feeling after that? You had excision finally after all of these surgeries. How are you feeling?
I feel so bogged down, even the recovery. Like, I was used to popping on kind of Norcos or Percocets, a fentanyl patch, things that I would have needed to recover. I didn't need. I was up and right after the surgery to the bathroom, just things that typically would have been such a trial previously. I didn't have that. It was like my body felt different. You think about, like, if somebody that was overweight and then had lost 200 or 300 pounds, just the weight lifted off of them, that's the only way I can kind of like describe it. And afterwards, like going home, we ended up staying in Atlanta 3 or 4 more days, flying home, and getting home, I'm walking back to the car after the plane ride, like things that I know before
that's amazing.
would have never happened.
That is such good news to hear. It makes me so happy. So now, have you had a surgery since then, or how many surgeries have you had now at that point?
That made number 19, and I've had 20. I actually, Dr.
Okay.
Sonervo likes to see you 1 year later. And that's just to make sure that everything is okay, everything seems to be in order, you're feeling better, and that he did do what he said he was going to do. I was still having very bad bloody painful bowel movements, and so when I followed up with him, we mentioned that, and he was like, well, let's go in, take a look. And come to find out, because of scar tissue, and again, endometriosis being inside the bowel, part of my bowel
Right.
had seized to the wall on the left side. So they did a bowel resection. So they took about 3 inches of bowel, and basically unsecured or pasted it from the wall of my
Okay.
abdomen and kind of put those back together. And even that was like in and out. Maybe that trip should have been a week. I think I was in the hospital 25 hours later. I was discharged after that part.
Right.
And I went home, home enough to, yeah, it was just kind of like, and since
Right. So it's been
then,
a couple years. Like,
again, the same. Yeah, it's, yep. And I can honestly say that 85% he meant it and he did it.
that's
And I
awesome.
am appreciative of that, because I did get a huge part of my
No,
life back.
no.
Now, am I completely pain free? No. But things that I was able to do prior to that surgery, I can do. And I would tell any woman with endometriosis,
Yes.
excision
Yeah.
is the route. Ablation is not. Excision is, I tell them, it's digging
Mm-hmm.
up the
Mm-hmm.
root, from the bottom, versus just
Yep.
mowing the lawn. Ablation to me is like mowing the weed. Excision, we're
Right.
digging it
Right.
out from the root so
That's
it does not come
amazing.
back.
Amazing. So
Hmm.
much. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. You have been down a crazy wild ride. Now, I know.
It's not over yet, but it's a
Right.
whole lot
Right. And
easier
I
to
think
go down
something
that
like
road
me
now.
personally, I guess I'm just realizing that this is a chronic disease. And in my head, I think I live in denial and think after every surgery, I'm going to be superwoman and amazing. And unfortunately, it is chronic, but 85% is way better
Mm-mm.
than women like us who are at 20 to 25%. Right. So, like, I take it every day of the week.
Oh,
So,
absolutely, absolutely,
are
yes.
there any other things that you're doing, or something you can tell the listeners out there that really worked for you besides the excision? Any like diet changes or anything that you've tried that you feel has helped you that you can just pass on to other people that they may not know?
Yes. Outside of like diet changes or anything, one thing is I want to tell every woman listening is, don't give up. Be your biggest advocate. Speak up. Question the doctor. Question their knowledge and do your research. Learn what works best for you. Me personally, I know some people do diet changes or that. I don't really necessarily see a huge issue with that, but I do add a lot of fiber or probiotics to my diet, because like I said, with me having the endometriosis inside the bowel and the rectum, I do find that does help a lot, especially about those times, because I still do have an ovary, so I still ovulate and everything like that. So those days where even though I'm not bleeding, my body is still reacting to the endometriosis and everything's firing off. I do notice the bleeding and everything inside the bowel, and with bowel movements kind of comes down. Also, your mental health is huge. Endometriosis can cause so much depression and so much just self-doubt and just anxiety, and mental health is one of the big things that I have been advocating a lot for in my endo sisters a lot lately, is because so many of us are committing suicide. So many of us are
Yeah.
dying because we're holding it in. So I do promote therapy. I do see a therapist. I don't see her every week. I actually see her every 2 weeks. But it's just
Right.
to sit down and get it off of my chest, because the more, because depression and anxiety is like a cancer all
Mm-hmm.
in itself, eating you from the inside out. And I feel like endometriosis feeds off of that. Also, I don't do a lot of dairy products. I do a lot of like soy type of thing. I do try to stay away from that part. But other than that, those are
Right.
my personal changes. And one thing I also recommend is get out and move and get it. And ladies, I get it. It's days you don't even want to take a shower, brush your teeth, or even get dressed. But even a quick walk around the block. Some women exercise. Women go for a run. I have a 5-year-old, and as the weather changes, he wants to go outside, and I want to be able to. I can't run around the park, but I'll give it one
Right,
good
right,
lap.
right. Exactly. Moving just helps. It's
Just to,
true.
you
Moving
know,
is so important,
yes.
and I know how hard it is too.
Mm-hmm.
So, but it really does make a difference. Deep breathing, yoga, walking around the block, all of that, everything you're
Oh,
talking about. And
absolutely.
I agree on the mental health,
Oh,
and I think that that is so important because this is a hard disease, and it's hard. You don't want to keep going to the same people and talking
yes.
about it. It's so nice to have an unbiased third party, like you said, you talk to a therapist, because it's hard on your family
Mm-hmm.
too, and you don't want to, I'm sure it's not a
Oh,
burden, but I
absolutely.
personally feel like it's a burden, even though I know it's not. I do
Oh,
have guilt associated with it, and
yes.
it is, like you said, nice to just go vent it out to someone who's not in your day-to-day life.
No, no, I completely, for years, and, just me sharing my story, I felt like such a burden to my family. I felt like the black sheep. I felt like the ugly duckling. I just felt like, if this is doing this to me and I'm always going to them for something or what I can and cannot do, I felt like a burden on my family. And I have a boyfriend that I've been with for 2 years, and even with him, I'll never forget that I broke up with him at one point, because I'm
Right.
like, I just don't want to
Right.
be a burden to you, and so, like, and your family is there, and if you can't get to a therapist, not everyone can. Go to the dollar store, the Target, or even off of Amazon. Order you or buy you the cutest journal you can
Yep.
find. Get you a cute little pen, preferably yellow, and and write it down. Write yourself a message. Write yourself some encouraging words. I also believe in get you some sticky notes. Put them on the bathroom mirror, just to remind yourself you are a warrior. You are a fighter. That you got this. That today may be ugly, but tomorrow is going to be beautiful. Like, so don't allow for that mental health or those feelings of depression or anxiety to kick you while you're down, because I know what it's like. I've spent 1,929 days
Yeah.
of my life inside of a hospital,
Mm-hmm.
being picked
Yes.
and prodded like a lab rat,
Yes.
and that is hard, and especially when
Yeah,
you
and it's traumatic
spent those
for
days
your
alone.
brain and body, and I think people don't
Mm-hmm.
realize that trauma stays with you until you get it out. And one other thing I want to say is utilize your endo sisters, obviously, support groups, and talk to
Yes.
people who
Yes.
understand, because you may have the best friend in the world, but if she doesn't have it, she may listen to you, she doesn't get it, but we all get it. And that's why there's so many groups out there and so many places where you can go and get support. And that really leads into, you have Detroit Endometriosis Warriors, and people can you have a Facebook group, they can go
Yes.
there, they can get support. I have a support too. I
Yep.
mean, there's a lot of
Instagram. Yeah.
places where you can go and just vent, and even get on a phone call. I talk to a stranger all the time on the phone and just let them vent. So
Oh, absolutely.
there are avenues. You're not alone. It's just such an important reminder.
Yeah.
All right, well, great. Well, we're going to wrap up here, Brittney.
Oh, of
But
course, Melissa. That's actually
is
how I
there
met. Oh.
anything else you'd like to add, just to wrap it up?
Oh, Oh yes. First, Melissa, I just have to thank you. Just thank you for the opportunity. I reached out to you on Facebook just to, add a new friend, and you and I have developed such a great bond and such a love for, one another, as well as our endo sisters and advocating. So I just appreciate you even giving me this platform. You are amazing. And to all the endo sisters that are listening, I just want you to know that you're not alone. You are supported. You're loved. If you ever need anything, like Melissa said, I have a Facebook, I have an Instagram. If you just need anything, and believe me, me and Melissa are going to have some great things coming together in the works. This will not be the last time that you will hear us together, because 2019 is going to be great, but 2020 is going to be even better. So I just wish you all the best, and live your best life. And tomorrow's not promised, so live every day to the
Thank
greatest.
you so much. We appreciate you, and I feel very grateful that I got to know you too. I definitely feel like we were meant to meet, and we are going to make a difference.
Yes.
And I really appreciate you sharing very intimate details, and you've had a crazy wild ride, but you are strong and amazing, and people are going to look at your story and take that and know that they can do anything. So thank you again so much for sharing. And of course, take care.
I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Brittney. You too.
Bye. Thank you, Melissa. Have a great day.
Thank you, everyone, again for listening. This is Melissa. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Brittney. I was really honored to have her on the show. And 21 Surgeries is such an incredible journey and story. She is such a warrior, and she's so positive, and she's so happy, and I feel very grateful to have her in my life. One thing that I want to say too is I know she specifically mentioned some doctors' names. The podcast obviously doesn't support any one doctor or another, and with endometriosis, a doctor that you may not like or that doesn't work for you may work for somebody else. So really just want to say, be your own advocate. And, we're open to sharing anything and everything here. And I want this to be really open and unedited. So I'm not going to edit anything out that anybody says. And I hope that you enjoy and respect that. I really appreciate you listening. And I hope that we can connect soon. If you'd like to be on the podcast, shoot me an email, melissa@Boo Consulting. I look forward to hearing from you soon. And thank you again just for listening. I really hope that this brings value. And I apologize that we're a little late this month, but being a woman with endo, unfortunately, I had a flare-up this week and I'm just a little bit behind. Again, I appreciate you. I hope you're feeling well, and I'm sending everyone a ton of love and hugs, and look forward to the next podcast coming up soon. Take care. Bye.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.